All right. Welcome to our virtual program. My name is Laura with the Plano Public Library, and I want to thank you all for joining us for today's program. Please note your microphone and video have been turned off. If you have any questions, you can type them into the chat. Heather will be monitoring the chat to assist you with any issues and bring questions to my attention. We will also leave time for questions at the end. A few housekeeping reminders that we would like to share with everyone. Please note that this program is being recorded and will be made available on the Plano Public Library YouTube page for later viewing. Soliciting business or selling merchandise during library virtual programs is prohibited. Please show respect for our presenters and one another throughout the program. Zoom provides live captioning. The option is available in the Zoom toolbar. And welcome to Be a Citizen Scientist. This is a series of 3 programs, each focusing on a different citizen science opportunity. This week, we're going to talk about eBird. Now, before we get started, let's take a minute to look at what citizen science is. Citizen science is a collaboration between scientists and people who are curious or concerned about the world around them and are motivated to make a difference. Anyone can participate, and the data collected by citizen scientists help professional scientists come to very real conclusions. Now, in the photo here, they are doing a citizen science survey of, I believe, mountain goats in a national park. And what we're going to do today will give you the opportunity to get outside, but it is also something you can do from your own backyard. eBird is one of the world's largest biodiversity-related science projects. It's managed by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. The Cornell Lab of Ornithology's mission is to interpret and conserve the Earth's biological diversity through research, education, and citizen science focused on birds and nature. It is a great resource for anything about birds. It has a database of bird species complete with pictures, maps, and sound recordings. The goal of eBird is to gather information about birds in the form of checklist of bird species, archive them, and freely share it to power data-driven approaches to science, conservation, and education. Today, we will be talking about eBird and its features. We will briefly discuss setting up your eBird account, but the intent of this program is to introduce citizen scientists to eBird. eBird is available in 30 plus languages. And to get started, you're going to go to eBird.org and click the green Get Started button to create your free account. And that link is in the chat. So using eBird, the web version. Recording your birding is referred to as a checklist in eBird. Each time you use eBird while birding, you will submit a new checklist. And there's 2 ways to record your birding through eBird. I'll start with the web version, and then we'll move on to using the app. And so what's on our screen right now is what a checklist would look like if you were submitting it in the web version. You will record where you are birding, when and how you went birding, so the day and the time you went, how far you traveled, how long you were birding, or if you were stationary or traveling while you were birding. And then you enter the birds that you see. Enter the number of each species you saw and identified while birding. Even if you only heard the bird, count it as part of your checklist. You can also download the app on iOS or Android devices, which is the fastest way to get your sightings entered from the field. So let's talk about our app. So the eBird app is completely free. There are no in-app purchasing options and there are no ads. The main page is a prompt to start your checklist. When you click Start Checklist, it starts recording your date, time, and location. And once that checklist appears, you can begin bird watching. Type the species that you see at the top of your screen. You can either add your count by clicking the plus sign next to the species name, or you can click on the species itself and enter the number. And you can also add notes in the detailed boxes. Once your bird watching is done, click stop. A pop-up will appear checking to see if you really meant to stop your checklist. Choose a location. The app is going to help you determine your location by using your device's location. Answer yes to are you submitting a complete checklist of the birds you are able to identify, and click submit. So this is how you're going to submit your checklist through the app. And you can see here, I did a eBird checklist at Russell Creek Park off of Independence, just north of the Davis Library. We're going to take a deeper dive into eBird and all of its features. So because you need an account to use eBird, it requires a valid email and a name. So I've used eBird for years, and the emails they do send me are minimal. So if you're concerned about getting constant emails through eBird, don't worry too much. They're not going to spam you with a bunch of emails. And then in your data privacy, you can adjust your privacy settings on the website's preference page. So public name display, this allows you to choose how your name is displayed publicly. You have two options, your first and last name or as anonymous eBirder. And in a moment, I'll show you what this looks like when you're on their website. It is completely up to you if you want your name displayed or not. In data privacy, this allows you to restrict the public visibility of your data. Cornell researchers will still be able to view your data though. That is the intent of eBird, is to allow researchers to have access to it. But if you restrict public visibility, that means no one using the app is going to be able to see where you are. Now that we've covered the basics of using eBird to record the birds you see while birding, let's turn to using eBird as a tool to find more birds. If you'll bear with me for just a moment, what I'm going to do is leave our presentation and pull up eBird itself. So this is what the landing page looks like. You can see I'm already signed in, and you can see my stats there on the left, and the picture changes every day. So it's fun to see what bird is going to be shown that day. Today we have a white-tailed eagle. In order to access the features that I'm about to show you, you do need to be logged into your account. As I said, I am logged in already, and we're going to find out how we can use eBird to find more birds. So we're going to go up here to Explore, and this is going to give us a couple of options. And let me just turn off. There we go. There are three ways to use the website to find more birds. You can map species or species map, which allows you to find the range of a particular species of birds, discover birding hotspots near you, and explore counties, states, province, or countries to view the most recent sightings, first-time sightings, all-time high count, hotspots, and more. So let's begin with map species. So we're going to go down here, and I believe it's just going to be species maps now. I may have gotten my words swapped, and we're going to click on it. And this gives us a map of the world. And we're going to begin by entering the species of the bird that we're looking for. You can use the common species name, so you don't need to know a bird's binomial scientific name. Now, one bird that I have always wanted to see is a belted kingfisher. So let's go ahead and type that in. And as you type, there's a drop-down menu that appears, and you can just select the bird from it. So you may not have to type the whole thing in. And now it's showing me, makes sense. This is a North American bird, but that's still a pretty big range. Now over here, it changes the date or auto defaults to all year round, all years, and you can make that information more useful to you. So since it is February, let's go ahead and just do December through February, get us a winter count. And then what I would like to do is also narrow it down to the past couple of years. 1900 to 2025 That's a big range. If there were belted kingfishers in a place in 1900, they may not be there still. So let's set our date range. And now let's zoom in. You can put a particular place name or address into the location search toolbar, or you can zoom in to find hotspots and locations. Let's go ahead and just zoom in to North Texas. So you can click and drag the map, and we're just going to start to zoom. Keep Dallas as our focus, and then the closer we get, that purple is going to start to disappear, and it's going to change to little balloons. And these are locations where it has been seen. So if it's red, that means that one was seen there recently. If it's blue, that means that the report is over a month old. Now, if it has that little flame in it, that does mean it is a hotspot for birding, which we'll get into in a minute. And if it doesn't have that flame, it could be a personal location. So if you're looking for a public access area, you're really going to want to look for a hotspot with the flame in the center, because these dots that don't have that symbol could very easily be someone's yard, and they may not want you there. But let's zoom in a little bit closer to Plano. And it looks like within the past 30 days, one was seen at Oak Point. So we're going to click there. And we can see right here that on the 30th of January of this year, a belted kingfisher was seen at Oak Point. So as we've talked about hotspots here, let's look at them up close. So we're just going to head back to Explore, and then we're going to click on Explore Hotspots. Now, a hotspot is a public location that people regularly visit for birding. This does not mean that you are guaranteed great birding with each visit, but because checklists are frequently submitted there, you'll have a good idea of who to expect to see when you do visits. If you know the name of the hotspot you're looking for, go ahead and enter it here. If you don't know, we're going to skip that. Since it is February, again, let's change it to February, and we'll keep it all year for right now. We're going to set our date range. And now we can input a particular place name or address, or we can zoom in. You aren't able to use a zip code for location. So let's just put in the address of Davis Library, 7501 Way, Plano, Texas. There we go. So here we are. Here's Davis. Now, there's not one directly by Davis, so let's zoom out a little bit and see what we get. And here we go. Russell Creek Park has one right here. So let's click on it, and you can see that in February, the all-time high for species have been 66, and 23 checklists have been submitted. Click a few details. We'll show you what species have been seen. And if you click directions, that's going to take you to Google Maps and tell you how to get there. But here's what the Russell Creek Park hotspot looks like. So you can see on Saturday, some new species for the month of February were seen, and that included a white-winged dove, yellow-bellied sapsucker, blue jay, American crow, and they were all submitted by an eBirder named Sarah. And if we wanted to see Sarah's entire checklist, we can. We'll click on that, and you can see, ooh, got an orange crowned warbler and a ruby crowned kinglet, a brown creeper. So if these were birds you wanted to see, Russell Creek Park might be a good choice for you. The numbers on the left do show how many were seen. So 15 cedar waxwings. They do like to travel in a flock, so that makes sense. Blue jay looks like they were solitary. I like to use these checklists that have been submitted for hotspots to see if I go at a time that is around the time that they went. What birds might I be able to see? Birds are outside at all times, but they're going to be more active at different times of days. And if you work or have school, it may be hard to get in to a really early slot to go see birds, but maybe the afternoon's a good time for you. I'm always worried that I might miss some, but 4:15 in the afternoon, she got a good list of birds. So that's promising. And then this is for the month of February. So our checklist leaders and species leaders are going to be limited because it is just the 3rd. But this is where your name could be displayed publicly. We can see here that she has submitted the most checklists for the month of February. As I said, we're still pretty new into the month. So as time goes on, there'll be more. And then to the right says species leaders. So this means who has seen the most species. And again, it's this eBirder here. Now we talked about keeping your name private, where you'll be displayed as an anonymous eBirder, and that is the case right here. Back in January, there were 3 lists submitted by someone who did not wish to share the name. Now, one thing that I do enjoy about seeing the names is you start to recognize people and you're like, oh, they're really good at spotting birds. And then I go and see who did they see, where did they go, what time did they go, and I try and have the same luck as they did. All right, well, let's leave hotspots and we're going to go back to explore. And now let's explore regions. So this is a good way to find birding hotspots and species to look for if you're traveling. As you type in your destination, a drop-down menu appears, just like it did with species, and you have the option to select from the drop-down instead of typing it all out. So let's say we're planning a trip to New York City, and we have some time to go birding while we're there, but we don't know where to go. So I'm going to enter New York City, and ooh, no matches. Nothing comes up. So let's see what happens when I remove the city. And now we see, there it is, New York, United States. So let's click there, give it some time to load. And here's the main page for New York as a region for the month of February. This is a great way to get an idea of who is being seen where. So on the left are community targets. These are birds that have been seen around this time of year. In past years, they just haven't been seen yet. That doesn't mean they're not there. They just haven't graced someone's checklist. So if you see them, they're expected to be there. Now on the right are new species, which are the most recently recorded species that have not been seen in that area before or have not been seen at this time of year before. So if you're looking to expand your life list and want to see someone new, this is a great place to start. So for me, that common goldeneye, that's pretty cool. I'd love to see one of them. So that would catch my attention. And you can see it was seen at Governor's Island. Now scrolling down gets you to, there's some photos that people have submitted, and then recent checklist. This lets you see where people have been birding recently. Now, this being New York City, you might think birds are going to be in Central Park, and this is absolutely the case. We're seeing Central Park on here, the Great Lawn, but we're seeing others as well. New York City is actually a great place to go birding. It sounds kind of counterintuitive. It is such an urban area, but the birds are there. And you can see they're at parks. This was at Grand Central Terminal. There's other parks as well. And then let's go back up. And we're going to click on hotspots here on the left. So right now we're in overview. Let's visit hotspots. Again, Central Park features heavily on this page. You can see Central Park, the Ramble. A fun fact about the Ramble, this was Roger Tory Peterson's favorite place to birdwatch in New York. So if you're ever in New York and you want to walk in the footsteps of an ornithological great, I do recommend the Ramble. Last time I was there, I did see a Cooper's hawk enjoying a dove being dive bombed by blue jays. So you never know what you might see in the ramble. There's also other places as well. So you can see Governor's Island, Randall's Island, the Battery. There's a lot of really great places to see birds. And you can use these spots to figure out where you can go. Now, before we move on, let's look at a smaller location in a different setting. So let's go back to explore. We're going to explore regions. And if I were to visit my aunt in Haskell County out in West Texas, what birding opportunities might I have? So let's type it in there. And when you type in a county, it's going to kind of look like you're typing in a city. County is not going to follow it. But here we are, Haskell, Texas. So let's click on it. And here we go. So, ooh, a Ross's goose, a greater white-fronted goose. That's exciting. So while the bird watching may not be as well documented as it is in New York City, there are some great things to see. There may not be as many birders there, or they may not be as familiar with eBird, but I have a pretty good chance of checking off some lifers on my list should I go visit my aunt. Now, exploring regions is not limited to the United States. So let's just head on back. If I were visiting my aunt and uncle on the other side of the family in Chernobyl, Ukraine, see what the birding looks like there. Now, these are all things I haven't seen because I haven't been there, and that would be the dream to get those guys on my list. But you can see that birding is going on the other side of the world, and they are using eBird to record it. So even if you are traveling abroad, you can use eBird to figure out where you would like to go birding. Let's take a look at my eBird, which is right up here. And these are going to be my personal stats. If you've been using eBird for a while, this is where you can go to dig deep back into your history and see what you have seen. So along the top, you can see the total number of species I've seen since I began using eBird in 2021, how many checklists I've submitted, as well as any pictures or audio that I've uploaded. So you can see I've done a total of 108 species during my time with eBird, and I've submitted 181 checklists, along with 22 species photos. And this year I am doing a big year for Collin County, which means I am attempting to see every bird that, however, temporarily calls Collin County home, calls it home. And so far I've seen 37 species. eBirding over time, which is going to be right here, is a graph that shows you how many species you've seen the current year and then the past 2 years. So you can see this time last year, I'd only seen 23. So I have some pretty good headway on what I saw last year. And then it'll also show you your life count compared to, or I'm sorry, here's February. Here's my life count. Now, the right side of the screen displays your most recent checklist and any media that you've uploaded. So let's take a look at this checklist. This is one I did Saturday, and you can see what your checklist would look like to you. So you can see the route I took over here on the map. And then these are the species I saw. I was able to take some pictures, so I uploaded them along with my observations. And I did go back in and edit this. So I didn't worry about uploading those pictures while I was doing my survey. I did that later. See, there was an egret, saw some great waterfowl, and I heard some chickadees and a titmouse. Head back to my eBird, and we're going to look on the left side of the screen now. And there's a menu here, and you can manage my alerts. And this does increase the number of emails you get, but not by a lot. And it is optional. You can see I am signed up for rare bird alerts for Collin County. And this one's really neat. You will enter that county and it will cause notification of rare bird sightings to be sent to you. This is a great way to expand your life list. You will be notified when a rare species is sighted in the area. This notification will include the location as well, so you can go look for yourself. And you can see there that I get them. Recently, there has been some fish crows hanging out at the Herd Museum. These guys seem to be possibly spreading west. They are mostly along the East Coast. I've seen them in Virginia. I've heard them in New York. And now they seem heading toward Texas. So if you want to hear their strange call, you may get to if you head over to the herd. And down here is needs alert. And this is something you can sign up for, and it will give you notification of species that you haven't seen yet. And then as you tick those species off, they'll not appear on that alert. And this might be helpful for me as I get further into my big year. I haven't done it yet because there are some common birds that I just haven't recorded yet. And I don't necessarily want to get an email every time a grackle is reported. Okay, so let's head back to our presentation. And I'm going to talk about sightings. So what happens if you are wrong? Not to worry, bird identification can be tricky. It can be difficult to tell similar species apart. For species that look similar, eBird sometimes has an option for selecting both. So downy woodpecker and hairy woodpeckers not only look similar, but their ranges overlap. So if you just get a flash of a black and white bird with a little bit of red on its head and it's definitely clinging to a tree like a woodpecker, but you didn't get a good enough view to differentiate if it's downy or hairy, there is an option to select downy woodpecker / hairy woodpecker. And I always struggle to differentiate between the lesser scaup and the ring-necked ducks, which are both common species in the pond behind Davis this time of year. Now, what about an unusual observation? So reliable, accurate data is essential to the eBird database. If you record an infrequent species, you'll know it's infrequent because next to its name will be a circle that is half filled and it's going to be orange. Or if it's a rare or out of season, it'll have a red dot. It could get flagged by eBird's automated filtering process, and you could see a needs detailed message on your checklist. This just means that your observation needs more documentation than usual. It may not be that you are wrong. You may find an observation that tomorrow is going to go out to everyone who's signed up for those rare bird alerts and make a lot of people exciting. So don't let that just hold you back immediately that, oh no, it's not supposed to be here. It may be there. So always try to get pictures of unique bird observations. The app is going to run in the background of your phone, so you can still use the camera to take pictures. And try to remember to take notes if you come across something unusual. There is a notes box where you can type those directly into the app. So you could describe the song you heard or the flight pattern, anything that helps identify it. Now, there are eBird reviewers, and flagged observations are reviewed by these volunteer eBird reviewers. They're going to look over your documentation to make a final decision on the accuracy of your observation. If they need more information, they will reach out to you using the email in your account. And this can feel like you're in trouble, but you are not. These eBird reviewers are people who love birds. When I first got into birding, I was confused by the red-bellied woodpeckers, which also have a red head, and the red-headed woodpeckers, which have a head that is much redder than the red-bellied woodpecker. Red-bellied woodpeckers are common to our area, while red-headed woodpeckers are not. So when I submitted my first checklist and had mistakenly added a red-headed woodpecker, which I didn't get a picture of, to a checklist, a reviewer reached out and asked me a few questions. I was able to describe what I had seen and said, you know what? Sorry, you saw a red-bellied woodpecker, not a redheaded. Another time, I reported that I saw a greater scaup, which in reality was a lesser scaup. And this time, I relied on what a bird identification app had told me, and it led me astray. And when I shared this with the eBird reviewer who reached out, he did walk me through the differences between the two birds. So I learned something in the process. You need some help identifying birds. There's a lot of help out there. One are field guides. Now, field guides are an individual preference. It's best to explore different books to see which one works best for your needs. One of my favorites is the second one on the screen over here, The Birds of Texas Field Guide by Stan Keklia. I love it because it is organized by color. So you can just flip through it. If you see a bright blue bird, you can go straight to the birds that are blue and start comparing what you've seen. However, we are in the central flyway for migration. So during migration season, you may see unfamiliar visitors from other parts of the country or even other countries. For example, the white-crowned sparrow breeds in the Arctic Circle up in Canada, but it will migrate to North Texas in the winter. So for this reason, it is a good idea to have a field guide to North American birds as well. And you can use the library's catalog to find different bird guides to explore and see which you like the best. I do recommend just trying as many as you can find to really figure out what's going to work best for you. But sometimes field guides can be difficult. Now, it is always a good idea to become familiar with the birds in your neighborhood. 15 to 20 bird species are going to make up about 99% of your neighborhood bird sightings, especially if you're doing your checklist at a feeder. So consider these your baseline birds. The more you become familiar with these birds, the easier it will be to recognize them by sight and by sound. This way, when you see something that's unusual, you're going to pick up on it quickly. Sometimes you got to pick up on it real fast, and this is where an app may be useful. The Merlin Bird ID app was created by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology to help birders answer the question, what's that bird? It's free to download, and it is available for both Apple and Android devices. So Merlin Bird ID has an option for you to upload a photo of your mystery bird, and then it will help you identify it. So you can see here the two screenshots there on the right. I saw a wonky looking little robin in the parking lot. This poor guy was going through some molting. And I took its picture, and you can see there's the box there. You're going to zoom in until your bird fills the box. And then we're going to click next, and it's going to let me know I saw a robin. Now, Sound ID, which is that screenshot there on the left, identify birds by their song. And this is one of my favorite features. Allow the app to run while you're listening to birdsong, and it's going to help you figure out who is singing. So birds do need to be close by or very loud, like crows or blue jays, to be picked up by the app. An ambient noise like traffic or water flowing or cicadas in the summer can make it difficult to pick up a bird's song. I actually have trouble using it at the pond behind the Davis Library because there is a fountain and it kind of just drowns everything out. And it can be tricked by a mockingbird. If you suddenly have a lot of birds that you don't usually have in your yard, don't get excited yet. Take a look around, usually at the highest point in the area, and see if a mockingbird is nearby. He could be the culprit, because they do like to mimic other birds. And you can see here, I heard a nighthawk. This is a visitor to my neighborhood every summer, and he calls out in the evenings, which is really, really neat. And you can also see he's a little uncommon, despite his name. So I feel very fortunate that I have a nighthawk in my neighborhood at night. And Merlin Bird ID does maintain a live list of all the birds you've identified using it, and all your IDs will be recorded as a checklist in eBird. So it's going to talk to eBird. So this nighthawk and this robin counted as species that I saw in eBird. It does have its limits though, so it is best to use it along with your bird field guide. Like I said, it can be tricked by birds. It can also, if the picture's just a little bit too difficult for it to see, it may give you the wrong bird. So you'll also want to cross-reference with bird field guides, or you can crowdsource an ID by uploading your picture to the iNaturalist app. And that has helped me as well. So let's exit our presentation one more time because we're going to talk about trip reports. So let's head back to eBird and we're going to go back to my eBird. And trip reports were introduced in December 2021. And a trip report is a summary of where you went and who you saw, along with any photos or audio recordings you uploaded in one spot. So we can view all of my trip reports here. I don't have too many. I only recently learned about this and started using it. And your trip reports, let's look at my most recent, which was the October Big Day. And this is going to show me a checklist of everything that I saw this day. It was a banner day for great egrets. I saw 20. And you can see a map of everywhere that I looked at birds. So you can see I did it in Plano. I also went into Wiley. And then lifer. I don't think I had any lifers this day. I did not. But I can show you one where I did have a lifer. Right over here, these check marks means I saw these birds for the very first time, which is always exciting. And then if there's an X by it, that just means that it was submitted through Merlin. Like I said, they do talk to each other. So it is counting that I saw a northern flicker and I recorded it through Merlin. I just didn't submit it as a checklist. And then there is a link that you can share with others. If I click here, I can send this to someone in a text or an email, or I can post to Facebook if you want to show off where you've been. So you can make a trip report this way, and we'll go ahead and create one because there's something coming up and we'll touch on that in a minute. But let's do the Great Backyard Bird Watch 2025. And that is going to start the 14th and it's going to end on the 17th. And this way, anything that I record during the Great Backyard Bird Watch, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, is going to be in this trip report. So let's go ahead and create. And hasn't happened yet, so I have no checklist just yet. And then let's go back to edit. Let me know. Okay, well, there's an option to limit the visibility. So only you and those you send it to can have access to it if you choose. There we go, have a screenshot. And then if you do a link only, this is what it defaults to. Only the people that you send a link to can see your list. In public, this means that your trip report might appear on an eBird page like hotspots or your profile or in search results. And as you saw when I made it, you can do it in advance. So if you have an upcoming vacation, go ahead and make it before you leave. Check one thing off your list. So what is next? If eBird is something that you enjoy, there's more opportunities to do citizen science with birds. So as you saw just a moment ago, I did create my trip report for the Great Backyard Bird Count, which occurs next week, next Friday on the 14th. It is a global 4-day event that seeks to create a real-time snapshot of bird populations in the world. And they like to do it this time of year because the birds are gearing up to start their migration. So this gives us a snapshot of where they are right now before they all go to wherever they go for the spring and summer. So last year in 2024, during the Great Backyard Bird Count, more than 140,000 people from all over the world submitted their bird observations. This was the largest instantaneous snapshot of global bird populations that has ever been recorded. And so this is your chance to make eBird or the Great Backyard Bird Count of 2025 an even bigger year if you would like to. And then to participate, all you have to do is watch birds in your favorite bird watching spot. So this could be your backyard. This could be a park. It needs to be at least 15 minutes. It can be longer. It needs to be done at least once over those 4 days. And this is a great opportunity, as you just saw, to create an eBird trip so that you can see who all you saw over these 4 days. I have found that Oak Point is a fantastic bird watching spot. If you go along the trails through the prairie, you can see a lot of slain creatures. And then if you go into the woods, you can see birds that prefer a wooded area. The last time I was there, I had a great, barred owl just fly right across the path. That was kind of magical to see. So right here in Plano, there's some great bird watching. Now, if citizen science is something that just really speaks to you and you're excited to participate more, there's 2 other options from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. One is Project Feeder Watch. You count the birds that visit your feeders from November through April, and this helps scientists monitor changes in the abundance and distribution of birds. Now, something to note about Feeder Watch, this one is not free. It requires an $18 annual participation fee, as the project is supported almost entirely by its participants. But you do receive a poster of common birds who visit feeders when you join, and you get to contribute to a long-term project. In Nest Watch, this is an opportunity that is going to come up a little sooner than you might think. It is a project where citizen scientists monitor birds' nests and record data on species, eggs, and young to help scientists understand how climate change, urbanization, and land use affects breeding birds. You can learn more about this project at the Nest Watch website. It has some great resources to guide you in putting up nest boxes, when to best observe the baby birds, when not to. I know it's February, but our birds are starting to build their nests. I know it's not a bird, but a squirrel in my backyard was chewing up a cord in my neighbor's tree, getting ready to make a nest. So it's going to happen soon. And I want to encourage you to just explore eBird's website. There are tutorials that will go into more detail than we did today about using the different features that they offer. And it's a great resource to use to figure out where to go birding next. I like to check it out on Friday afternoons to help narrow down where I'm going to go on Saturday to look for birds. And then we do have 2 more citizen science programs that are coming up. If you had registered for this one, you are already registered for these 2 as well, and we hope you will join us. The next one is in March. It is Citizens in Space. We're going to talk about the different ways that you can assist with research in space as a citizen scientist. And then in April, we're going to talk about iNaturalist, which I briefly mentioned here, but it will help you identify bird or species beyond birds. So it is anything that is living can be covered in iNaturalist. All right, so if you have questions, now would be the time. If you think of one later and you still want to ask, you can submit it through Ask a Librarian on our website. And once it comes through, they're going to see birds. They're going to notice in a different way. You don't have to take pictures. Pictures are not required. If you have them, they're great to include, but they're not a requirement. Now, if you do see something really, really rare, get a picture of it to kind of help eBird know, hey, this bird was here, and also just as a bragging point to be like, hey, look what I saw. Heather did just drop the Ask a Librarian link into the chat.
And nothing coming through on the Q&A. So if you do have questions, you can submit them both to the Q&A or the chat.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending. We really appreciate you being here. Please be sure to stay up to date with Plano Public Library by following our Facebook page and Instagram account. You can find recordings of past programs on our YouTube channel. Please complete our program survey, which should pop up following this program. We value your feedback. Thanks again for joining us today, and we will see you next time.